It all started when I noticed a few drops of oil under my Peugeot Boxer 2.2 diesel every morning. At first, I guess it was just old green dripping down, but over the few days the leak got worse and the coolant level mysteriously dropping. I knew it was time to dig deeper. Let's have a look what happened to the valves.
Today we're giving my Peugeot Boxer 2.2 diesel some much needed love. Full maintenance, oil cooler swap, filters changed, coolant flush and fresh oil. Let's get into it. First, I drove the van carefully onto the lift. Always double check the ramp placement. This box is heavy and you want a stable lift before you work under it. Once the wheels were perfectly positioned, I double-checked the ramp arms. They need to sit correctly under the van's lifting points. No guessing here. It's about safety first. After positioning everything, I started lifting the van slowly. While it goes up, I keep an eye on how it moves. No sudden shifts, no strange noises. If it doesn't feel right, you stop immediately. Once it was fully raised, I locked the lift in place to make sure it's secure before working underneath. Now with the van safely up, the real work could begin. With the van up, I started by draining the coolant, opened the lower hose, let the old fluid pour out completely. Messy job, but necessary. Next up, removing the oil cooler. It's held in place by 3 bolts. First, I carefully loosened each bolt one by one, working in a crisscross pattern to release the pressure evenly. Once the bolts were free, I supported the cooler with one hand, because as soon as you remove the last bolt, it can drop slightly. As expected, once I pulled it off, more coolant and a bit of old oil spilled out. I let everything drain completely into the pan underneath. After removing the cooler, I took time to clean the sealing surface properly. No old gasket, no debris, because the new cooler needs a perfect fit to avoid leaks later. It's super important to clean the mounting surface well, removing any old gasket material to make sure the new cooler seals properly. Then, I bolted the brand new oil cooler in place, tightening it evenly to spec. No shortcuts here. If it's not sealed right, you're back to leaks. Once the cooler was secured, I reattached the coolant hoses. Each hose was pushed firmly onto its fitting until it seated fully. I checked the condition of the clamps, and if they looked weak or rusty, they'd be replaced. Otherwise, I simply tightened them snugly to ensure there'd be no leaks once pressure builds up. Before moving on, I gave all connections a quick pull test, just to make sure everything was locked in properly. Better to double check now than deal with a leak later. Before adding any fresh oil, we need to get rid of the old stuff. With the van safely up on the lift, I placed a large drain pan under the oil sump. Using a ratchet, I loosened the drain plug, being careful because sometimes the oil comes out fast and hot. Once the plug was fully unscrewed, the old oil poured out into the pan, dark and thin, carrying all the dirt and contaminants from the engine. I let it drain completely, no rushing here. You want every last drop out to give the new oil a clean start. While it was draining, I also inspected the drain plug. If the washer looked worn or damaged, it would be replaced to make sure there's no leak when reinstalling it. Next, I moved on to the air filter. I grabbed a screwdriver and removed the screws holding the airbox cover in place. Once the screws were out, I lifted the cover carefully and pulled out the old filter. Honestly, it wasn't as bad as I expected. A bit dusty, but not completely clogged. Looks like someone changed it fairly recently. Not terrible, but it's always better to go fresh. I placed the new filter in, making sure it sat properly in the grooves of the airbox, then reinstalled the cover and tightened the screws evenly. Quick, easy job, but it keeps the engine breathing clean. Next up, the diesel fuel filter. First, I located the filter housing and removed the top cover by unscrewing the bolts. As soon as the cover was loose, I gently lifted it, but not too far, because there are hoses and a sensor connected underneath. I carefully disconnected the fuel lines, pressing the release clips to avoid breaking anything, and unplugged the electrical connector for the water and fuel sensor. Once everything was free, I lifted the old filter out. A bit of diesel spilled, which is normal. I had rags ready to catch any mess. With the housing empty, I wiped down any small diesel spills around the base to keep everything clean. Then, I dropped the new filter into place, reconnected the fuel lines and the sensor, and reinstalled the cover, making sure everything clicked and sealed properly. A clean fuel system is critical for diesel engines, so taking the extra few minutes to do this right is absolutely worth it. Time to refill. Poured in fresh engine oil, topping it carefully to the right level. No rushing here. Checked twice to avoid overfilling. Before moving on, I checked underneath. No leaks. Good sign. Then I refilled the cooling system with fresh coolant, making sure to bleed the system properly to avoid air pockets. Finally, after double checking everything, I gently lowered the van back onto the ground. One more look underneath. No leaks, no drips. That's the kind of maintenance that keeps a Boxer strong for many more miles. Thanks for following along. If you enjoy real-world van maintenance, hit that like button and subscribe. More Peugeot Boxer stories coming soon. With the van finally sorted, no leaks, fresh filters, everything running smooth, it was time to hit the road again. This time we pointed the nose south and headed for the coast, Southend-on-Sea. Driving down, the landscape slowly changed. City streets faded into wide open fields, old farms, and quiet country roads. As we got closer to the coast, the air felt fresher, saltier, and in the distance, you could just make out the sparkling line where the sky meets the sea. Southend-on-Sea isn't just a beach town. It's got that relaxed, old-school British seaside vibe. Colourful piers, classic fish and chip shops, families strolling down the promenade, and that endless view over the water. It wasn't a big trip, but it was the perfect way to celebrate a van that's finally road ready again.